Hi everyone, welcome back to Grandpa Mark's Hobbies and a build video of the Chrysler engine that came in the 32 Ford 5-window coupe. It was a 2-in-1 kit, and you could do either the Chrysler engine or the Ford engine. But I've never done a Chrysler engine before. Did a bunch of research online about it just so I knew what I was doing here. And this is what's gone in the sprue. So let me take this off of the sprue. Everything's off the sprue except for the hoses and the air, oil filter. So let's see what we have for parts. We have our water jacket, whatever goes between the two heads. We have two heads, two halves of the engine, and an oil pan, and the fan belt. Look at how nice that fan belt is. So let's start with what everybody likes to start with, and that's the engine. Since that's what we're working on, probably be the best place to start. I like to do it by just doing a quick test fitting, real quick, just to see where I am. And this looks pretty nice to start with. Now see, these are the where the sprues came together. I got a little bit of mold line marks right here and down here. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go ahead and glue it together because it is tight. I'm going to glue it and then we'll work on it. But first, let's move these out the way so we don't end up slinging them across the room. So let's pop this apart, and I'm going to do a reach across. I like to use the extra thin cement from Tamiya, and a couple of, let me grab 3 of them just in case I need an extra, clothespins. So I'm going to get this to where I can get most of my Snicker bar fingers out of the way. Oh, see, now there's a little bit of a mark there that's going to keep that from going flush. So I'll hit that real quick and down with some sandpaper or my sanding stick, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to grab my file real fast. Hey, I keep my files in a jar. And what I did to find out, you know, between the files is this one's blue for my round one. This one's not painted. And let's see here. And a purple one for my flat. And those are the ones I use most of the time. But that makes it to where I can look at the jar real quick and just reach in and grab them. I'm going to come up and go a little angle over just to get that out of the way. I will sand all that off after it's glued, and then I can sand both sides of them off and make sure it's nice and even. And that's the main ticket. Make sure it's nice and even. This feels good. Again, that's where the sprue was attached. So I will go over and I'm just going to kind of flip it up a little bit, but not sand it through. Got a little bit of a burr right there. And I do this with every single kit as I go through. Just make sure things are going to be out of the way so we can have a nice flush finish. So again, get my Snicker bar fingers out of the way, but hold it to where it's not going to launch once I glue it up. And then I glue in the 2 holes first, and then I'm going to come around and glue where it's going to touch. And I'm sure there's other people that do it other ways, which, you know, is fine. This is just gluing 101 here. And look at that, just boom. Now I can move it just slightly to get the best fit. Give it a hold. And there we go. Look at that fit nice. See the seam? When we're done with that, you won't. I'm not going to mess around with this tonight. I like to let these sit overnight just to sturdy up. I got all kinds of other things to do. So I'm going to just set this off to the side. And as a matter of fact, I'm not going to clamp it at all. It doesn't need it. It locked down, it settled down, and it laid smooth. I love this kit. It is just fitting perfectly. So let me set that down. Tighten up my jar before I spill it. I'll be back tomorrow. Okay, it's been overnight. Our glue is dried, and you can see we have a little bit of a seam here. Bring it right up in there. You can see the seam running down here, across the back, all the way around. No big deal. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sand all that off, get all this nice and smooth, clean off the bumps here. I'm going to go in with my intake, and I'm going to get rid of these nubs off of both ends, where I had to cut it out of the sprue while they didn't have them attached in the corners or something. But I'm going to get rid of those. This needs just a real quick sanding right here. Everything else looks really nice. Our valve cover, or our heads, need to be cleaned up right here. And just general cleanups. Anywhere where they were attached to the sprue, look for any flash, which there isn't any on here. Same with the oil tank. It's got a little bit of bump here. You can see them real close right here and here. But we'll knock those down real quick. The water pump came on. Right here we need to take care of it, and down at the bottom. So these are easy. I mean, I'll knock these off. Right here. There's one right there. Needs to be sanded, but I'll take care of that. But what I did do is I got a little bit close to the pulley. Right down here. See how I flattened it out? So I'm going to have to sand this down and around to make it look so it's not flat. A flat pulley makes a whole lot of noise. So I'm going to do that and get everything cleaned up. And then I'll bring it back, because I already see a problem here with these heads. They have locator pin marks on them, but yet there's no locator marks on the engine itself. And I was laying these on here, and they should go right about like this. Well, kind of up, because see that line here is going to go with the valley pan. And this comes in, it'll fit on here. And I know it's going to have a little gap right now because of that nub. But then this is going to have to get glued in place first, so it's in the right spot. But look at the overhang in the bottom. There's going to be a gap there, and there's not much I can do about that gap. It's just, it is what it is with the model. But I'm not going to worry about it. I got to have a place to hide my my spark plugs anyhow. So I got to drill those out. I got to figure out where to locate them. But you can see when I lay that in there, now I'm going to have a problem if the intake is going to line up. And it looks like it will. So we're going to be okay there. It's just going to have that little bit of a overhang. So don't freak out over that. And if it bothered you, you can always take and put a little piece of sprue in there, and then, a round piece of sprue, have it halfway out, sand it down, and it'll fit. Or sand a piece down, put it in there so it fits up flush. I'm not going to worry too much about it. Again, it's going to be buried in there. Nobody's going to be able to ever see it, but I'll know about it. But something part of the model. By the time the heads come in, the oil filter, the starter, your exhaust and all that, it'll be fine. So give me about 15 minutes. I'll clean all these up, and I'll bring you back and we'll talk about what we're going to paint it with. Okay, we are back. I cleaned all the panel lines off, sanded everything down, made it look nice. Nothing drags on my nails. But I noticed something. I wanted to assemble the engine and then paint it. But this is the valley pan. It fits down in here like this. And on a real car, this would be, you know, opened up where you can see down inside and everything. And this fits over like that to basically keep the oil in the engine. The distributor goes here, water jacket is here, and that has to go on first before the heads go on, because there's a little lip here that has to tuck up on that in order for it to lay down properly. So my whole thought about doing the engine all in one shot and then adding the intake and the valley pan went right out the window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue on my oil pan. Not sure which way it goes. Anyhow, I'm going to glue on my oil pan first, and then I'm going to I'll grab it back here. I'll paint this all the Chrysler orange. I'll paint these the Chrysler orange. The pump, the crossover, and then these I'll just do the aluminum. And then remember my pulley, I messed up the bottom. Quick sanding, you never know I did that. Took off the nub on the top. But that's what I'm going to have to do to make this to where it's going to paint up. But the other thing I wanted to show you, and I've never had this happen before, is my intake had two, let me grab my pointer, had two nubs, one here and one here. You see where I took them off. What those were supposed to do is line up with these two nubs right here. But if you look, if you lined them up, they would end up like that. See here? They'd end up way off. And I thought, well, no problem. This one goes on this side. Well, if you look, they did them, so this would be the same way. So I sanded those off. Basically, I cut them with a knife until they were gone, and then sanded them down. And it's just going to have to be line it up. Which, how hard is it? I mean, you can see where they're supposed to go. Just be careful when you glue it on. That's that. The other thing I had is, this is a little water crossover. The radiator is going to sit down on top of here. And when I said this is the radiator, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Now that my brain is working, that's where the vent goes and the oil fill cap goes, not the radiator. But what this little crossover attaches to the fuel or the water pump with this little hose right here, just goes right in this hole like that. And that's going to pump the water into this crossover, which then in turn pumps it down the head into here where this hole would be. Well, you see these are flat all the way around. There's no indicator marks on them anywhere. There was an indicator pin on this one, on the low one. And you see these are two different. One sits back farther than the other. Remember, your heads are going to sit back farther. One sits up front, one sits back just a little drop. And that will line up with that. So when you sand that little bump off, and you have to or else it won't lay flush, sand that off, but just till it's gone. Don't go any farther or else your head's going to be out however farther you sand this off. Because that has to all line up or else you'll have a water leak. So there's that. Everything's ready. I don't think you want to watch me paint, just wide open paint. When I do the detail stuff, I'll film the painting. But just to do painting, everybody knows how to do it. I did want to show you the 5 tools that I used. I use a round rat tail file, a flat file, and a square file. I use this to scrape like I showed you, and just a sanding stick. And that's it. So let me go ahead and I'll get all this painted, and then I'm going to let it dry overnight just because it's already 5:30, and I'm going to go up with the pups once I get it painted. So I'm going to paint this Chrysler orange, which is a mix of red and orange. I do it by eye. I'm going to use the Tamiya X6 and the Tamiya X7 till it looks right in my eye, and I'll paint it, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to have to paint everything that's going to be orange with it, or else I'm going to have a mix match. Now, I've done that before on purpose where this would be a little different orange than this, but for this build, I want it to be all the same because this engine's going to get put into the road or into the Roadster. It's going to be built at the same time and put in. Anything that was repaired with the engine would have been pulled out of there because you're not going to work on that thing in that little cramped space. So let me get it painted and I'll bring you back. Okay, everything has got a coat of paint on it. Engine looks good. Transmission, I did my little flat aluminum and gold mix for the plate just to add a little bit of interest. And everything else is done. Aluminum intakes, the valley pan, carbs, heads, crossover, my coil, distributor and everything are over there, and everything. Distributor, fan belt, and starter, and the rest are over there. And what we got to do first thing here, because this is going on the block first, is we need to do a quick pin wash of our valley pan. So I'm going to take my accent liner, Tamiya panel liner, what I always call it, and I'm going to hit it. Well, you know what? How about if I glue that down so I have some place to hold it? I'm going to use Instacure's medium. I like the thick a little bit better, but this is what I ended up with. So this is what we're going to use today. The thicker is just easier to pick up on the toothpicks. So you see I used double-sided tape to hold this the whole time. I test fit everything before I started doing this. We got to make sure that that hole lines up with that hole because that's where the oil filler sits. So let's move these out of the way so we can see a little bit and be less crowded. I have a water bottle cap that I put a little bit of my Instacure in, and I'm just going to give this a shot. Pick some up with my Q-tip, my toothpick, and I'm going to lay it in the slots, both sides, and then I'm going to give a couple of good dabs here and there, just so it holds. That's all you need. You don't need to sand all this off and everything. There's no stress or anything on there. Now what I'm going to do is take a clean toothpick and put it right in that hole. And just make sure that's lined up. And it is, and it's dry, and it's already set. Look at that. See, it's stiff in there. Laid down nice and smooth all the way around. No problems. So let's move this out of the way before I glue my knuckles. Take this Tamiya panel liner. And what I like to do with this stuff, now you saw me give it a good shake, but then I'll take this and I'm going to rub it down and dip it like 5 or 6 times. I don't know why I do this, but I just feel like I have to. And then I'm going to take most of this off just by rubbing it up on top, because all I want to do here is highlight. I'm not going to go crazy, but I am going to highlight everything because it shows up big time. Watch it run in this valley pan. You ready? Capillary action, man. Science at its best. And if this was gloss coated, it would have taken off in there. Get most of it off just so I can control it a little bit. Watch it run around everywhere where I've already done it, just so I can get it everywhere I want it. If you get a little too much on, hit it with your fingers, hit it with a Q-tip, whatever you feel you need to do. But see, I had to do that now because when I start putting the heads on and everything in the intake manifold, that's going to get buried, and I would never be able to do that. And I think you'd be able to see it just looking down across the top. It's going to show up a little bit. Those bolts, look at how they just jumped out when we did that. Now we're going to do a whole thing with panel liner, but right now I just want to get that done because I can't get to it. So let's grab a head, and we're going to do a little test fit. Now you see how this one sits back farther than that one, and I showed you on the fill, the crossover for the water, that this one sits a lot less shallow than that one. It's going to sit up there like that. So let's put this up to it and see how it's going to look. Trying real hard to do this and keep it in frame. There's two pin marks on here I showed you before, but there's no alignment marks on this, so it's up to me not to screw this up. So what I'm going to just try to do is set it up tight onto the valley pan and line up the front and the back. So it's going to go just like that. So let's hit it with some of this super glue. And I don't put a whole lot on here, but I do want to put enough because I'm going to get a little abusive here when I do the valve covers and the spark plug wires. Now I'm lining this up with those two curves, and I'm going to push it up tight against that valley pan. Just like that. We'll hold it for a second. Oops, see, it slid. Did I just lose that? Yeah, I did. We want that to go right there. Sitting down on there. Is it even? There we go. That doesn't feel like it held very well. But I am even on that. Gaps all the way around. I'm up touching the valley pan. That's what I want. I'm not on. Oh, I was on top of it. That's why. There we go. Even and even. So that's one. Move my clothespin out of the way. We'll set that down. I'll grab the next. And I'm going to put these on, and then if I have to file this a little bit to make it sit down on there, I'm okay with that. But I really don't want to have a gap between this and this. That should be touching. We don't need any air leaks. We don't need any water leaks. Look how nice that looks now as that Tamiya settles in there, the panel liner. Put a nice little bead on the bottom. On the either edge. And you know what? Even when I'm not filming, I will still talk like this to myself. There we go. All right, let's drop this on. If I can pick it up that is slippery. And set it in place. Just like that. Let me make sure I got an even gap, which I do not. I need to pull forward just a smidge. That looks pretty good. Let's see how we look with our jacket. Let me grab my tweezers here. And I'm just gonna, nice, look at how flat that is. How about if I do it this way so we can all see what we're looking at? That looks pretty darn even to me. Yes, sir. Maybe a little bit. I did sand that a little hard. I'm going to take off a little bit on the front here when we go to put that on. But I got to make sure that I don't take off so much that it doesn't line up with the water pump. I'm trying to find the purple. I'm not going to go crazy here. We're just going to take off a little bit. And if you want to fast forward through all this, go ahead. And I will see you at the next step. But I'm just testing. I do this quite a bit. And I figured you guys wanted to see. But if I put it on there the right way. You guys wanted to see how I build them. Oh, that's better. That is acceptable there. What do you think? You think? I think. All right, set this off to the side. How about if I put it on a piece of sticky that's still sticky here so we don't lose it? If I put it on there, I won't flick it off onto the carpet. And if I do, I got the whole thing on the carpet and not just this little piece. All right, so there's those. Now the next thing that goes on is our intake. I love this double-sided foamy tape. It works out so nice. Let's see how this just drops in there. I'll take it. It's going to sit just a little tiny bit low, but not bad at all, huh? Just like that. But I'm telling you what, before I do that, I'm going to put my distributor cap on. Because that would really stink to get all that together and then find out, oh, and by the way, I made a, if you didn't see my update, I made a vacuum advance for the distributor. So I can safely point this back out of the way here. And we're just going to set it there. I'm not worried about gluing it in. I just want to make sure when I put this on, it fits. See? I'm glad I did that. Tuck it in. Just like that. We're going to favor the forward side of it just a little tiny bit. Like that. Now my distributor will fit. That's still touching. But we'll be good. You know what? I am going to glue this down here while I can. Because I want that vacuum advance to point out a little bit towards the back. Just like that. Perfect. I'm going to add a little bit of glue. This is spread out to where it doesn't want to pick up any. Now, how are we going to get this on here without gluing my dang fingers to the model? And that's not it. I guess that'll be it. That'll work. All right, we don't need a heck of a lot of glue. We're not going to go crazy here today. We're just going to get some of this put together. And then we're going to let it sit while I do the wires and get them ready. I haven't drilled out the valve covers yet either. But I want to do that and show you where we stand there. All right, hold on a minute. See what I was doing there? Turn that around, or else the carbs would have been fitting the dang wrong way. Look again, flat to the front. Push that back just a smidge. Look down here. Oh, I just broke the valve head there, the head off. Look at that. That did not glue. That was the first one too, where I was screwing around with it too much. Let's get some here on this. Now, if you don't think this happens to a bunch of people, then I'm sorry. But I know I'm not the only one that can mess up an easy job like that. Now again, let's check that. I can always add a little bit more glue there. This stuff is thin enough to where it won't hurt, but I want to make sure that my water crossover is still good. And I think that's pretty decent. I can come forward just a smidge. Just a little tiny bit here. No, I can't. That is solid as a rock. All right, well, we can deal with that. No problem. Let's put this back on the sticky like that, out of the way. And we'll glue that to my finger. All right, so let's add some more glue because I know that dried up. There we go. And as your Q-tip, as your toothpick is used more and more, it'll pick up a little bit more. So you're not playing Dippin' Dots here. Drop this on. Take a good look down the end. Look at how that angle is. That wasn't looked at very well. No wonder why that sat funny. But that's the way it has to go. So that's the first thing in one of these Revell models that I've seen that doesn't line up perfectly in a long, long time. But there we go. Let's move on to the next step here, which will be, let's do the water pump. We're to this, so let's not do the water pump. Let's do the water pump jacket. Let's line this up one more time. I'm as happy as that's gonna get, I guess, huh? So let's get some glue on this thing. I just stucky tape to my finger. You don't need a whole bunch of glue, but you do need enough to get good contact. Let's not put that upside down. I'm trying real hard to put that upside down. Ready? Take a look at it from the front. That can come down just a bit, huh? Not really. let's see how this water pump lines up. Look at that. Perfect. Now, see if I can pull it back off. Yeah. All right. I've done that before, and then you're like, ah, crap. Okay. Let me do this. Right there. Around the bottom. Real quick. Let me dig out some more. There we go. That's all we'll need. I'm going to just put that right in there. Put this back on. Push it in. Walk away proud. That's looking pretty decent. That's a big dang engine right there, buddy. All right. Move that out the way. And the reason I put the water, it says first. So I did that, and then we'll drop this on. I can drop the carbs in now too. I'm gonna hold off a little bit for the fan belt. So let's do these carbs. I'll show you what I did here. Just for a little bit of highlighting, I did that gold aluminum, painted the whole thing aluminum, and then painted this with that gold aluminum mix that I do. And it's 2 parts to 1. 2-part aluminum to 1 part of the gold leaf. Then I did a little black in here. I dropped the black in there just because. So there's our carbs. The one I already drilled out, this is going to be the back carb for right now because that's where the vacuum advance hole is going to come in. So let's get some glue. Let's put a little more glue in here. And I'm just putting a teeny drop in there. It seems like a lot, but it's not. And we'll give this a shot. Make sure that it has some place to glue down to, although it's just gluing paint to paint. But this glue, it doesn't go very far. I've never had it really self-destruct on me. All right, 1 carb down. Boom. Now let's center this carb out before that glue takes hold. Man, that detail is just beautiful on there. All right, let's get the other carb out. I will drill this one too. It's only going to have the 1 hole on this side. Because I'm using the back hole for the vacuum advance. And since this has that big breather oil fill thing on it, I don't need to worry about PCVs. Push it down. Check it out. Nice straight line. All right, I'm happy with that. So that took us all of about 15-20 minutes to get to this point. I'm going to stop the tape for a few minutes. I'll get the valve covers out and ready. We'll drill them out and we'll get going on them too. So give me a few minutes to get set up. Okay, I got my valve covers cut out. I need to do a little cleanup on them. And again, if this, you already know how to do this, go ahead and skip to the next. Skip forward on it. No big deal. I'm going to be wiring these, so. But I wanted to make this as basic as I could, and with everything I do. So, there we go. Let me shut this down. Also, I'm gonna do the same one, just like that, and I'll bring it back. Okay, we are back. I got these bottoms sanded smooth, and I wanted to show you real quick before I forget to show you. On these, they had the 2 pins for where it was molded, which they were nice the way they set them up. So you could clip them this way and get rid of most of them on a quick sanding. But there were 2 locator pins one here and one here, and there are no locator pins on this head. So this was kind of a mishmash here, I think, of parts. But I can eyeball this head up because I'm gonna eyeball it to the back flush, just because I need to make sure that's gonna be okay with the exhaust. So that's where I'm gonna take it, and it'll be fine. But the other thing is, inside here, they have a little dimple right here to kind of like simulate the spark plugs. Well, we're gonna wire this thing, so what I have to do is I have to get rid of that dimple so that I can drill a hole as close to center in there as my blind eyes can see. So I'm gonna take my tweezers, and I'm gonna come in on the side of this, and I'm gonna bust that out of there and kind of give it a tweezer cleaner. See how now that's gone. I'll bring it up really close here. I knocked that one down, and then these three are still here. Now what I'll do is I'll take my 3mm, 0.3mm drill bit, and I'm going to set this down. And I'm sorry that my hands, and let me try it a different way. I'm going to end up drilling my finger out here, but I'm going to drill this, try to get it as centered as possible, and then I'm going to just drill out the hole. Okay, so I'm going to set it down, and I'm coming at an angle because I saw I wasn't right on center, and then I'll straighten it up as I turn, and these things are thin. So now I'm going to come down and let it spin on the bottom a little bit, come out, and that helps get that burr out of the way. And I'm going to come in this way and just run it in there and pull it back, just to file that hole out a little bit. So let me do that 3 more times on here, 4 more times on the other one, and I will bring you back. Okay, so all 8 of those holes are drilled, and these things are ready to go. Like I said, the bottoms were sanded off, so I'm going to glue these into place as best as I can. This is the first Revell model that I've ever had that was kind of weird on the engine build. So I'm going to hit this right around the bottom here, across the top, because I know it's going to overhang. All right, now I'm looking at this thing for the 50th time, angle up, just like it is in the pictures on the internet. So I'm going to set it. I'm coming over here to line that up. Make sure it's straight. And there's one. And those fingerprints we'll polish out there real quick. Now let's do the other side. And I'm telling you, this is how I do things. I'm sure there's somebody out there that does it way better than this, because I am a hack. But hey, my laundry's dry. But this is how I've done it, oh shoot, since the 70s. There we go. That one laid down there nice. That looks good. Are we straight? No, we're not. Does not look good. Sam, I am. Give that a little pull. Now it looks straight. There you go. There's a quick build. You see I have a little white on here that I can touch up, or I can leave it. When the panel liner hits it, it's going to just make it look good anyhow. So while we have this carburetor is going to need a fuel line. And I'm just going to eyeball this somewhere. We're going to do vacuum advance, fuel line. This would have vacuum advance, so we'll go fuel line. just on here. Let me get my thumb on that so I'm not trying to press through everything I just glued. I am in the picture, right? And right there. And this is how I do just about all of them. Look at that's walking down on me. Is I just kind of pick a spot and say that's where it's going to be. I have looked online at these carburetors. There's not a whole lot of information on there. So I'm shooting from the hip, guys. I'm close enough. Seriously, when you get everything on here and we get all our details on here, that'll be good. How deep am I here? Not deep enough. I want to go a little bit more without scratching the valve covers I just put in. There we go. So now I'm going to have fuel line, a fuel line. Vacuum advance will come up around here. And now on this side, I got to think about my linkage here. Not a whole lot of detail. I'm going to have to go back online. You know what? I will go back online before I drill anything else out, because I'm pretty sure, if I remember, this is our linkage right here, would go here. So I'll come out with a rod like I did on the other one and then line it up this way. So there's that. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to prep for my spark plug wires. And this is a big engine, and I don't want to come up short. So I'm going to cut 3 inches off of these things. And grab my tweezers because I have a heck of a time. See how I bent that? Watch this. This solder is so forgiving. It's not even funny. Now this is just going to be a test piece because I got to get everything set up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to run these from here, and I'll take it, once it's glued in, all of them are glued in, I'm going to go like this and come up across the top. And then I'll work this around the back side like that. And we'll think about gravity, and we'll think about how these lines would lay in there and how they're going to be out of the way, and I'll bend them around for the top. But that's how we're going to do them. We're going to run one after the other down this way, and then I'll bring them around. So 3 inches is about 2 inches more than I'll need. But it'll give me a little bit of room. I'll actually go 2 inches here, I think. So let's straighten it out and find out where we are. We're good right about there. Look at how that straightens out. And would I say 2 inches? Yeah, 2 inches will be perfect. So I'm going to cut 8 of these things, 2 inches. I am going to paint them with my dark gray Tamiya paint. Usually I'll put a little dab of glue on this right about here to simulate the boot, but the boot's inside. The boot will be right here. So I'm not going to do that. And I got an idea for when we're done. I think I might take some Mod Podge and just dip it in each one of these to fill up the void, and then I'll paint it black. So, but we'll see how it looks without me doing that. It might not even be necessary. So I'm going to leave you here for a little bit. I'm going to cut and paint 8 spark plug wires, and then I'm going to let them dry overnight, let this settle down overnight. And then tomorrow, we're still not going to put the spark plug wires in. I'm going to do a panel line on all this. Now that it's all put together, I like to do my panel lining on it and bring up the detail. I'm going to add my oil filter, which is an orange Fram oil filter. And then I'm going to add my starter, which will go here. And then I'm going to just hope that I don't have to make headers to fit around it. But the thing needs a starter. And I'll touch up some paint here and there, but I think this is going to look really good so far with the panel liner. I'm also going to get my grubby fingerprints off of there before I go up tonight too. But anyhow, this is where we stand right now. We're moving along now. It's starting to look like maybe it might be an engine. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, everyone. Last night, I painted the spark plug wires. I painted my vacuum advance wire and let them dry. But I still had about 20 minutes left on my dryer. So I decided I was going to look at my exhaust. And I'm really glad I did. Because on the exhaust, on this one, you have two alignment pins in the back and one in the front. And this one, you have two in the front and one in the back. Well, on the exhaust manifold, or on the header plate, you have two in the front and one in the back, and two in the back and one in the front, which is exactly opposite. And now I said, oh, well, I just put this plate over here. Well, think about it. When you take that and you put it over here, it just reverses it. It's the exact same thing. Now, I could have taken these and put it upside down, and those pins would have lined up. But on top of that, if I would have put these pins, you can see I just cut them off and nubbed them down. I'll fix this in a little bit. But if I would have put them on upside down, no matter what, these pipes are going to stick out. I have the sticker bar fingers tonight. Would have stuck out way out like this. And there's no way in God's green earth that that was going to fit into the frame to attach to the other pipes. So I had to sand this thing down all the way back to flat just to get it to lay down in there where that'll fit inside the frame. So what I'll have to do, since you can see there's a gap in here, I'll get it to where it's going to have to go. You see that little gap on the top? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take Mod Podge, this just plain old Mod Podge, and I'm going to fill that up a little bit. I don't want to use my Tamiya putty, but because I'm afraid it might off gas onto the chrome, and I don't want to dull out that chrome. I know the Mod Podge won't, and I have hit Mod Podge with chrome before, and it'll eventually harden up and stick on there, and once this is in place is when I'll chrome that, and that'll make that look like it's regular pipes. The other side, the same thing. I had to cut those off and then sand this down so it'll fit. This one was not quite as bad, but it was still off a ways. You can see now this one fits in there. I still have that round off the top that I'm going to have to take care of with the Mod Podge and the Molotov pen to chrome it back up. But that'll be, down the road. And it's just one of those things that you gotta just do with models, because sometimes things just don't line up perfectly. The other thing is I tested it, and even with that pipe coming all the way over and touching the frame here, my starter will still tuck under there and it'll be fine. So the detail work I did on the starter, it was money. It was worth it. Let me clean this off with my lint cloth real quick. And let's start on getting these wires hooked up. We have to do the vacuum advance line first because these are going to go up and over the top of it. So let's get the vacuum advance. I painted it black, and we'll bring over my, I just bent some of those. We'll bring over my little glue pad or glue cap and my Instacure, and we're going to just dip this in here, get a good drop in there. Take this with my tweezers. Gosh, if I didn't have tweezers, I couldn't do anything because I wouldn't be able to pick any of this up off the desk. I'm going to just take this, dip it in there, get a little bit in, and put it right in that hole that I drilled and a vacuum advance. Now I'm going to let that go for a good 5 minutes or so, just because I didn't drill it in there all that deep. So we're going to let that go. I'll bring it back when that's dry, and we'll bend it around and get it into the carb. And I'm going to bend it around this. And I'm trying to make it to where it's not a real sharp bend. I want to make that flow a little bit to show that it is a hose and not a pipe. And I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to do it again. And now I'm going to look and kind of just eyeball how long this hose has to be. Remember, we're going into the back hole. The front hole is going to be for fuel. The back hole is going to be for that one. So I'm just going to go right about there. And now with my trusty tweezers, I'm just going to work this down until it goes in the hole. And there we go. Now that's straight in this way. Got a nice little bend on it. See, I nicked that a little bit, but that's no problem. We can hit it. And now I'm going to lay this down with my finger and push it down to where gravity is going to bring it up and around. That's a nice long vacuum hose, so on that you can adjust your distributor one way or the other and not kink it. Ask me why I know that if you kink your vacuum advance hose, you have a real bad day. It took me a few minutes to figure out why I wasn't running right. Now let's just take a touch-up brush and just fix that right off the bat. There we go. There's your vacuum advance hose. It's that simple. I could have shortened that up a little bit too, but like I said, I don't want to kink that hose because it'll drive you nuts trying to figure it out. Now, let's get into these spark plug wires. Remember, I drilled the holes both sides. Look at, I bent that over. Watch this. This is why I love using that lead. Even with the paint on it, I can straighten it out and it doesn't chip the paint off. You saw I was using the end of the tweezers pretty hard on that before it gave up the paint. Now test fit them. I'm going to start in the back, and I don't want to see any of that non-painted. So let me just trim it off. I made these things way longer than they need to be. So we'll trim it off. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the vacuum advance. I'm going to get some of that glue on here. And what I'll do is I'll come in and out of this glue and build it up on there because it is pretty thin. See, I got a nice little drop on there. And I'm just going to put it right in. And I'm going to leave it sit just like that. And I'm going to do all of them just like that, and then I'll bring it back. It's just a matter of gluing it, put it in the hole, and repeat all the way around for all 8 of them. This goes quick now. Okay, all the wires are glued in, and let's give this a shot. So we're going to take number 1 wire, and I'm going to bring it down. And I'm afraid that that's going to be right on the firewall. So I'm going to cut that corner here. And this goes to this right here. And you think I'm going to follow that firing order? No, I'm going to make it as easy as I can, but I'm going to still make it look good. So at least we can try, right? And I'm trying to do this without messing up to where you can't see it at all. But I'm just going to bend this around my thumb here, and then I'm going to push down just a smidge to get it to lay down out of the way. And that way I can bring it up. I can cut that off shorter now. So we're going to cut that right about there. Move that up to the out of the way. And now I'm going to bend this around just like that. And around again. Like I said, this is really hard to do. Let's get these out of the way a little bit. It's really hard to do on camera. So now that I got it bent, now I can fuss with it a little bit and move it around. And I want that tighter, so I'm going to cut a little bit more of that off. And this is the beauty of working with this solder, is I can manipulate it very easily. And then push it around, and it'll pretty much hold where I put it. So see how I got it coming down, and I got gravity looping it around. And I'm not one of those kind of guys that I cut my plug wires short. I never did. So I'm not going to do it on a model if I'm not going to do it on my real car, which I don't have anymore. But see, I got this twisted. So let's just get rough with it a little bit. I mean, it's solder. I can get away with a lot. And if I break it off, the beauty of it is I can just drill the hole out and do it again. There. See there? And that's number one. And I'm calling that number one. You know what, that thing, it broke. So let's snip it all the way out of the way, right where it broke. I got into that solder a little bit, and I've had weak spots in it. So I'm just going to pull this up. I'm not going to let it swing as far. Pull it up, and let's just bend it around a toothpick. Just like this. All right, now just pull it back down into place. I am missing number one here, big time. That's where my number one is. All right, and I'm just going to work my way around it. So one, bring it down. I'm going to come straight out, and I'm going to angle around this like that, and we're just going to load these up. Get my thumb in here, and this will move 90 times before it's all done. But as long as you get it to where it's close and take your time with it, you can get away with a lot. And you can see I've already thrown the firing order out the window. And trust me, when it's done, unless you're a diehard, which I'm not, you'll never know. Especially when it's tucked up against the firewall. There are some engines that you can see them, Ford engines where it's up front. Those, I will go out of my way and make them right. Let's get this close. Somewhere on the distributor here. Back over here. Tuck these in. Now I'm going to cross back over. I'm going to do this. Look at, I missed a bunch of paint. We'll see how that looks when we're done. I'm going to bend this on an angle down here. I'm going to put that sway back in it with my finger and bring it up. And I'm just putting it on my thumb and then pulling it up around it just to get it on this side of the distributor. Now let's cut this one off about yay high. Toothpick out here. Give it a nice roll over the toothpick, just like that. Now I'll take these. Well, now I'm going to cut it a little bit. Or am I? Yeah, I'm going to cut it a little bit. And you see I moved that other one way out of the way with my big ass thumb. But that's all right, because we'll put it back. They moved 9 ways to Sunday, but I think it's still better than me trying to drill all those holes out on that distributor and just royally messing it up. I'm gonna bring this one down, flat across. I've seen a lot of these engines where they have a little piece of channel that it screws down on these, and all the wires come up through the bottom and across, and you can't even see them. And I thought about cheating this thing out and doing that, but for how much you pay for these kits, I try to get the most out of them. Let's come up around the front on this one. That stuck right to my finger. I'll cut this off like this. Grab my tweezers. And I'm gonna make a pair of tweezers that I can just squeeze these and it'll round them. Put that in. Look at that, I knocked that one way out. All right, so you see now I've already got 4 of them in there. And now we'll come around here, straight down, and I'm gonna come up above it and cut it with my thumb, come around it, and let's go around the back side and bring it in around here. Just like that. Now I wanna go a little lower. See there, I want that sway in there. Make it look a little bit realistic in the back. You never see it once it's in there, but I know it's there. Come up about that high. And I'm gonna just start curling this over from here. Hey, again, I want to thank everybody for all the subscriptions, the kind words, and the comments, and all that. I really appreciate it. Our site is really taken off here. Last I looked, I was almost at 1,300. Well, I'm sorry, almost at 1,200 subscribers. I'd have never thought. Now see how that's looking back there? You're watching it, and you're going to see this much of it, and on the side you'll see that much of it. Who's going to be the wiser? Make it look nice across these, and everybody's going to be like, wow, man, you did your wires. And you're going to be like, yes, I did, and they're better. This is an easy, I'm trying to force that in there. I want to tuck this one down. I'm going to pull that up and tighten that bend up a little bit and then roll it into place, because I want that to come around here like this. Snip it off. Look at, I am caffeined up. I'm shaking like a leaf tonight. I should have not had a cup of coffee at break, at 2 o'clock break. There we go. That's one whole side. Look at that. Look how it builds up on itself too. Let me get that up close. See how it builds up and comes around, follows itself. Gravity brings it down and in. Let's get these 2 wires done here. And we can take a good look at it. And again, oh yeah, see, I'm gonna have to touch up some paint right there a little bit, but no big deal. Come around. This one's going to come up front. So I'm going to tuck it down like that. See how it's going in there? It's hitting a little bit, so let me grab the tweezers and come in between and just kind of pull it down in. See there? Out the way. Let's snip it. And roll it. Try to keep your thumb on it back to where it sturdies up a little bit. And again, trust me, when you're doing this and not trying to get it to where you're centered up on the camera or on the camera, it will be an H of a lot easier. And now remember, these things come up, these air cleaners come up almost straight up, so they're not going to interfere with this at all. You do have to think about that. Some of the Chevy engines, that air cleaner comes back around here. You want to make sure these are low enough to not be in the way. One more. And this block is wired for sound. I'm stacking it, and I'm going to roll it. And this is an easy one because it's going to be right up front. So bend it tight, push it back down on the outside. That'll be fine. Come around, snip right about there. Tuck that in, and I want to bring it down. Get my finger on there, so I'm holding it right here just to keep it a little bit stabilized. And I'm just going to give that a quick bend around. And this one's looking a little tight. I'm going to bend that one down, put it in place. And how about that, guys? And that's sticking up a little bit. Let's force it down, and it'll spring back up into place. Just like that. And now when I touch that up, the little bit of paint will glue those into place and hold them. But check it out. Tell me that doesn't look sweet. That looks sweet. I'm happy with that, except for that fingerprint right there. Let's grab a tweet. Give that a wipe. Get them out of here. Touch it in. And there we go. There's all the little pieces I got laying all over. I got more than enough for a coil wire. So, and then the coil wire, I'm going to probably put the coil on a firewall back here, and then I'll put that coil, the wire in the coil, glue it in the coil, and I'll just bring it around and push it down in the center. And it's bingo, man. So there's that. Next thing we want to do now is, honestly, I'm going to set this on here just to look. See how that fits on there. That's looking good. I did do a little playing last night too with this. But what I want to do next is I want to do panel lining on this before I go any farther. And really, most of the time I do the panel lining before I do the wires. But since I'm running them straight down on the valve covers like that, they're out of the way. So let's do this panel lining real quick, and then we'll stop for the night on this. I'll work on some of the other parts, but I'll stop tonight and let the panel liner dry, and then we'll get the belt on, the belt and pulleys, and then I'll make a bracket for the alternator because it doesn't have one. So let's start right here with these bolts. I'll draw this in. Whoop. We'll start with these bolts. You can't mess this up. Trust me, I've tried. where it's touching everything. I can come back in here and I'll show you. Oh, I get to use my new Q-tips. Check it out. Dollar store Q-tips. Dollar General. Eyeshadow applicators. I was talking to somebody, and geez, I've talked to so many awesome people on Facebook, and they were like, hey, try those. They hold a nice point. Check that out compared to a Q-tip where there's fuzz all over the place, and there's not on these. And I mean, it was $1 for 60. So let's just take this, and I'm going to come in here and touch the top of those bolts just to get rid of it on the top. See that? Now let's keep moving. I'd like to keep this video under about 7 hours. All right, see here at the bottom. Just give it a touch and see it run. Carburetor. I did nothing to because I wanted to do it in front of everybody. Come around this side of the carb. Touch, touch. Go to touch. Doesn't need a lot. A little bit goes a long way here. See there? And wait till you see this tomorrow when it thins out a bit. This is fun. I love doing this part. It's dramatic on how much it changes. I don't want to come on the carburetor with a fresh tip. Dryer's done. Seems like I'm always doing laundry. But see how that runs around inside there? Just like that. And all I'm doing is touching the bolt heads. That one didn't run all the way, so I'll touch it back there. See how it goes back in there? Now let's get this carb done. And honestly, you can fly. I was showing you on that carburetor, touch everything, be nice. But when you do this on these carbs, not only does it bring out the detail, but it gives it that, it's hard to describe. I guess the best thing you could call it is that carburetor look. I'm going to do these up top. I know that there's air cleaners going in there, but someday I might want to take them off. Give me a dip. I'm wiping off. You see there, I'm wiping a bunch of it off. Yeah, I already did the valley pan, so I don't have to mess with that. But I can do the edges right here on the flanges and stuff like that, just to highlight them. See, I don't like that on that bolt, like that. So let's take this, pointy end, just touch it, gone. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. We'll come down here and do our water pump. How about if I do it on camera? We'll do our water pump. This really brings out the details. And I'm not trying to make it look dirty. I'm just trying to bring out the highlights, which this will. Orange is a little stark, but it will settle down overnight as it dries. See how that just ran right down that line? Oh, I put my finger on that. There's a little bit on the front there. Watch this. Gone. If you don't want it somewhere, you can just wipe it off quick. Now don't let it sit overnight and come back and go, ah, crap, I missed it. Because you did. It's too late then. Watch how I do this oil pan. Just take it and Run it right around those. And I'm going pretty light on there. Now I'm going to do these. And when this is in there, and again, after it dries, it'll look awesome. This car's driven. It will have a little bit of dirt to it. We're just going to show a little bit of highlighting. Come around the other side. I'm going to hit where the oil pump goes, or the oil filter goes. And then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to touch that out a little bit. Oh, I like these pointing. That is nice. It's so much better than the Q-tips. All right. Real quick. Neighbor must be having a party outside. No. See how I got that on top? And I'm gonna lighten this up a little bit. Like that. See there? That's a little dark in that crack too. And I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do the same thing here. Just lighten it up just a little bit. All right. Now we need to do the oil cap, and I'm going to come back at that. Let me take this, check out the top again. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't do right there around the base of the carbs. Look at that. Either side. What the heck was I thinking? That one got a little, oh, it's settled down. Let's touch that. That'll give that aluminum a little bit of an aged look. Now, let's just turn this around. I'm going to hold it on the headers. And let's do the transmission. See how that just flies on there? Real quick. And all we're doing is a little highlighting. Off camera, you'd be done already. This is just Tamiya's black panel liner too. Nothing fancy, nothing done to it, no ink added or any of that. It's just straight out the bottle. I do shake the snot out of the bottles before I start using it every single time. Look at that, see there? This is just bringing out all the highlights. Look at the starter bump there. Touch it. This is going to be a lot. See there? I'm going to come back at that. And I knew it was going to be a lot. But when you come back and touch it, it comes right off like that. And that's the way I like it to look. Come around. Let's do this side. Not a whole lot on this side of the transmission. And to be honest with you, if you don't do this, nobody's going to be the wiser because you really can't see a whole lot. Now, let's take a quick look at it. I missed the whole bottom part of the bell. A lot of stuff right here. I'll go right there. I'm going to touch it and see where it runs. There it goes. All the way around. Missed this corner right here. There. And I was saving this for last. I didn't want a whole lot on there, but I do want to have enough to where It looks like the oil's been changed a few times. All right, let's call that a win in everybody's book. And there we go. Now that plug wire is going to bother me all night. See it there? This one right here. I don't know if you can see it in the light, but I missed a whole ton of paint. I did have this stirred up earlier. Oh, but it tightened up on me a little bit. There we go. This is the wrong color. I used the dark gray on the wires. That's why that was so tight. See there? All right. A little bit in the cap. And the pointiest pointy brush I have. And I'm just going to turn that to the light to where I can see it. I hope you can too, because you'll see how good this paint goes onto that wire. Look at that. Done deal. Now where I nicked it, up here, I'll give it a touch. Come around any shiny spots. Yeah, one right there. Bingo has been called. All right, we're done with that engine for tonight. No, we're not. I'm a liar. I got one more thing I want to put on it. Let me clean this brush real quick. Tap, tap, tap. Get the water off it. And I use straight water to clean my brushes. I don't use alcohol or anything like that. It doesn't need it. It cleans off well. I want to push this in place. There we go. I probably won't even glue that on, because by the time I get the alternator in there and glued in, it'll be fine. All right, everybody, that's tonight for the engine. I'll mess around with some other things, and tomorrow we'll finish this engine up. All right, everybody. When we last finished this thing up, I did all the panel lining, and you can see how it settles down in there and just makes it to where things show up a little bit more. Let's grab, I got a fingerprint on here, but our distributor looks good. I added the alternator. I took some of this real thin, it's called Evergreen, and you can get it on Amazon. This is as thin as I could find, and I made an alternator bracket, put the alternator on, made the bracket real quick, and just glued it in place. And all that is just a piece I cut off square, and when I paint that, I'm going to probably paint it a black or an orange. It'll blend in, and it'll at least look like that alternator isn't defying gravity hanging up in there. So now what I want to do is I want to come up with some kind of a linkage for the carburetors. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have two pieces, one on here, that are going to have a hole in the bottom part. It'll be easier when I show you, but I'm going to have a hole in the bottom part and it'll come up this way to where my linkage arm is going to run across the bottom, and in the middle I'll have another piece that'll pull. So all the linkages are going to go this way, and then the return spring will pull them back. And what I'm going to do, because there's no room to really tie a return spring in the front unless I go all the way over here somewhere. So I'm going to have the one linkage right here, the other linkage right here, the rod running this way with a piece in the center, and then I'll run a return spring from here right to the front of this carburetor, just a little piece. And then the back piece will come here, and then the where it pulls on the top, because what it's going to do is there'll be a rod, and this is going to pull when the throttle gets pushed in. It'll pull that back, pull the rod and both carbs will open this way. The return spring on the one will pull both of them back. That's the way I'm going to design this one, and that's the way it'll be. So I got to drill a bunch of holes and cut out little tiny pieces of sprue, and I'm not going to do that on film because it's going to take me probably 15, 20 minutes and about 12 times messing up before I get what I want to see. So let me do these. I'll drill all my holes. I'm using my small bit, the same one that'll fit the 30 millimeter or the 0.3 millimeter solder, because that's what I'm going to use for my linkage wires. And I'll drill all the holes. I'll cut them out. I'll bring it back and show you where we are with that. So give me a few minutes and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and I got 3 of them cut out. Just like that. Make them to where they look good to you. I mean, figure 90% of these cars were hand built anyhow. So there's no wrong way to do this. And you see what I'm doing is I'm putting a little drop of super glue on both carbs. And then we're going to grab a hold and we're going to set it right in the middle, tilted just a smidge, if it'll come off. We'll get it. Tilted, just it's sticking to my tweezers. Now it's going to stick to my finger. I want to try to get any glue off of this. Yeah, see? The stuff sticks good. Most of the time, not to what you want it to stick to. There we go. There's one. And now the fun part is this one has to match. There we go. Ta-da. Not too hard. Give this about 10 minutes or so to harden up. I'll get my alternator bracket fixed and keep my grubby dang fingers off of that belt. We'll be back to make our linkage, and then this engine's pretty much going to be done. Okay, look at the dog hair. Here's what I did, is I got a little piece of that 0.3 millimeter solder, and I got it to where it'll go on both sides. I cut it a little bit long, and then I bent the corners after I put that third piece of linkage in there. So now let's take this, and I'm going to do this real time because it is a tedious pain in the behind, but I want you to see that it's not hard. And I'm going to have to double my visor up. I can't get in there. So if my head's in the way, I apologize. All right, I'm in one. And I'm out of one. There we go. And look at that. And that one piece is just free swinging in there, which is fine. Now, before I do anything, including breathe, I want to get some glue on that. And it's just a smidgen of glue. Does not take much. So I'm going to get a brand new, excuse my reach, a brand new toothpick. Some of the Quick Cure. Wow. Had both visors down still. Get some of that on the toothpick. And I'm going to just touch it on the linkage right there. I want to make sure that that doesn't fall off. There, see? And now that other one that's just swinging there, remember, that's going to be my return spring. So let's put a little dab right there, just like that. And I'll place it in just a smidge. There we go. I'm going to put my carburetor linkage on here, and this is my return spring coming down to here, just like that. So that'll pull, everything will twist, and it'll pull back. So we'll be good. Okay. Well, there we go. Let's make a carburetor spring real quick. All right, I'm going to pause you, get my stuff together, and we'll do that. All right, let's make this carburetor return spring. What I have is some 32 AWG magnet wire. This is the stuff I use to solder the LEDs. And it's nice thin, and it's shielded with enamel coating on it so that I can put the two right together without worrying about them shorting out when they touch each other. So let's use this, since the other color I have is red. I'm going to cut off a heck of a lot just because I'm tired of being really tight on my fingers. And I'm going to use the wires that I was planning on using for my headlights, but they get hot because I coiled it. So I'm going to take this, put the other wire across it, and then I'm just going to start spinning this around here, just like this. All right, got a couple of wraps, and now I'm going to twist it. And as I'm twisting it, I'm pulling it, like pushing it together to tighten up on itself with my nails. All right. Let's take a couple of wraps off of that. That's too long. See those? Now watch. Put your fingernails in there and just pull, and that gets rid of that kink in there. Is that long enough? Let's take a good healthy look here. Push it all together tight. Oops, sorry, Duke. And bring it down and look. Yeah, that'll work perfectly. We're going to come up onto the bottom of this carburetor. So now let's get it off of this wire. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it with my fingers, pinch the far side, and just squeeze it off of there. Now we'll take one end and make it straight. And the other end will leave the bend in it. And we're going to cut this way long. Just like that. And see how we got the bend? This is going to go there, nice and straight. Look at that. We're going to come in here just like that on the bottom side. So now we're going to come around here, and I'm going to put both hands down to steady because I'm shaking like a leaf today. And I'm going to cut that much off of it. Now it's going to be tweezer time. Right now I'm making sure that that's nice and straight on the spring. You want that to look pretty straight. And here, I'll bring that up. Look at how nice that looks. Oh man, am I in this focus here? There you go. That's pretty cool. Simple. Let's take our tweezers and grab a hold of this just off, and we'll bring it up and fit it underneath and take a good look. See where we're going to cut it. I'm going to cut it right before my fingers, like this. This is all guess. Like I said, when these guys are building these engines and everything to fit like this, they're building it in the garage. Just like we're building it on our desk, just bigger. Trust me, I've been there, done that. You get to the point to where you're like, how the heck am I going to do that? Now let's see how we look here. I'm looking good. I like it. I like the length. Now I got to tuck it down and around there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip this in the glue. Let me move my, like this. Get that whole end of the spring in the glue. And I'm going to feed this up underneath that linkage. And put that in that hole. It's hitting. Not a big deal. Pull it back out. Still have my drill bit out. So we'll come in here and drill this. Oh yeah, I got a little glue in there. I must have. Drill that back out. Like that. There's a hole in there now. And now I'm going to shorten this 90 up just a smidge too, just to make my life easier. So, I've dropped that engine about 20 times now. Come in here, keep some of that 90 on there so you can work with it, cut it off, pick up your engine. I need a good engine stand. And dip it. I hope I'm in the frame here. Dip it in there. And again, we're going to feed it up underneath that linkage, just like that. Come in, put it in there, bring this up. And holy God, I couldn't have done that if I tried twice. I just ran that through the little hole in the other. Get it in there. Like that. All right, and now see that kind of tucked up underneath there? When that dries, that's going to be right on rain. Perfect. Okay, now that's what I do to do an engine. We're pretty much done. I did add the filter and the starter. Look at the starter tucked in there nice. Now remember, on this kit, it didn't show that starter going there. But I'm just using the starter that they say to put on the Ford. Who's going to know the difference? A starter is a starter, man. It bolted on, right? So we're good there. I will do my exhaust heads, or my exhaust manifold and headers when I get this put in the engine. It's just the way it is. And you'll see that on the updates as I go with the rest of it. But this is how I do an engine. Sorry it took me like an hour and a half to show you, but there's a lot into that. And this one, again, remember, I'm going to run my fuel line up, and I'm going to even cheat it, and I'm going to try to fish it through here when I put the engine in place. So it comes up, I'll run it around into the back hole. This one I'll run in and I'll just kind of tie it into to that hose there, put a little Mod Podge on it, put a little bit of brass on there, and it'll look like a fitting. So it'll look like it comes up, hits a fitting T, comes back into here, and then goes into there. And that's it. Remember, we got our vacuum advance, our distributor, our linkage. This piece here is going to be where the throttle pulls. So I'm going to have a piece going from here to the firewall when we're done. But there is my version of a Chrysler engine once it's cleaned up. In the car, this is going to be just sweet. I hope you liked it. I'm Mark. This is Grandpa Mark's Hobbies. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.